This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. Dustin, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Of course. So today we're going to start with game. I hope this is a fun podcast. So we are going to start with my favorite part. I created a game for you with you in mind. It is called Automate or Navigate. So I'm going to give you a bunch of scenarios, and you're going to tell me whether you would think that it could be fixed or, improved upon by using AI or automating it, or navigating it, which just means, using your own brains, your own skills, instead of using some kind of tool. Okay? Alrighty. So the first scenario is, writing a heartfelt email to fire a longtime client.
Ooh. Automate. Obviously, we might get into this later in the conversation, but I'm a big fan of augmentation. Mm-hmm. We should augment our words, and oftentimes I find myself using this trick for difficult conversations, or replies that might be emotionally charged, and making them a little less emotionally charged. So yes, definitely use AI to write that heartfelt message in a way that maybe you aren't natural. Like me in particular, I'm a very to the point kind of person, and it's phenomenal how far AI has come in its ability to be empathetic, especially models like Claude 4, one of my favorites. So I would definitely automate.
I completely get that. I think a lot of people would be really quick to say the opposite, but I think I very much understand your point. It's hard to sometimes either get too emotional or not sensitive enough. And as humans, we're all a little quirky in different ways, and sometimes we're not the best at responding perfectly. And I think sometimes it's really, at least putting whatever you would write through, vetting it through maybe some kind of AI tool would be helpful. I think that people think that that's maybe being not authentic, but sometimes I think it avoids a problem.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, like I said, I tend to be very to the point. I try to be empathetic, but I'm very blunt in most cases. So, having AI sort of check me is the same, I think, as getting a second set of eyes on it. I would say, hey, if I had my assistant here, can you review this and see if it's kind of tone deaf or if it's kind of emotionally lifeless? Just give me some feedback and maybe help me make it a little bit better.
Yeah, I actually talked to another guest recently about how they have someone in their company that kind of sends all their emails through ChatGPT to make it more kind, because they're also kind of a crafts person, and sometimes their words come off as rude. And I get that sometimes. I think I'm exactly the opposite, in which I provide maybe too much emotion and care to things that I write, and sometimes that's too much. People don't need to. Sometimes they need to simplify my words with an AI bot.
It's extremely helpful for organizations who have sort of a brand voice that they want to maintain. AI is fantastic at helping you maintain it, as long as you've given it that brand voice instruction so that it can help keep you in line.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, this is already a great conversation, but we're going to the next scenario. Okay, generating a weekly content calendar for social media.
Oh, 100% automate all day long. Having been a social media marketer for 15 years, running an agency, it's a grind. And that creative juice is so precious. When it runs out, you're done. And it doesn't care that you have a deadline, or you have 3 more clients to serve, or you're just short of your 7-day plan, right? You need to help that creativity be sustainable, and AI is the perfect creative writing partner when you want to sustain that creative juice and then guide it along the way with your ideas.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that it is very valuable to use your creativity for the right things, like the things that are really more valuable, and AI is really useful for a lot of the more tedious things that like can kind of waste that creative juice that we're using for this game right now.
Absolutely.
And clearly you have enough left, so we're good. So, okay, next scenario, I'll give you two more and then we'll move on to, more important in-depth conversations. Okay. Responding to a brand crisis in real time on social media.
Oof, that's a rough one. I would say pretty much similar to the first answer, where it's you need to navigate it with the augmentation of AI, because again, the AI can keep in mind different perspectives that we may not have about given situations, the sensitivity for different cultural groups. If it's a cultural thing, it can help keep us aligned with the brand messaging and also be universally aware of how to handle the situation. So I would definitely use AI to augment the navigation through a difficult crisis.
I think I saw that one coming.
Yeah.
No, but I definitely get that too, because especially if you don't have your own like PR person or whatever it may be, it's really helpful to probably use it to consider all of your audience in a way of like, do you see this, going the wrong way in, for this group. And I think that it can consider all of those factors, whereas you as just one person might not think that something will go
right
the wrong way in your perspective, but you don't consider all the factors and all the moving parts.
Right.
All right. Last one. Vetting a candidate for a leadership role at your company.
Yeah. So I think this is, again, another augmentation moment, because, you can have AI do a lot of the research that might be very tedious and time consuming about the candidate. You can have it even analyze, many times you have a resume, maybe you have some past history since you're vetting them for leadership within the company. You can kind of, if there are any previous, employee reviews that they've had, and kind of really analyze a lot of data with the help of AI, and eventually come to a conclusion on your own, obviously, through your own interview processes. And I've used AI many, many times in the hiring process as helping me come up with questions. I'm a people person. I love people. So I tend to be more conversational in the interview process. And many times I'll forget, like, what are some core things I should have asked them. So I have AI sort of help me prepare those ahead of time, review the resumes, and maybe say, based on this person's resume, do they seem like a good fit, or where might they fit best in the organization? So yeah, I think another augmentation, automate plus navigate scenario.
Yeah, I would say that's a combination of the two for sure. I completely understand the interviewing process thing, because I have a similar issue where I just started, doing some kind of hiring, and I realized my first interview, I was like, I don't think I learned anything from this person. This is my fault. It is my fault that I don't think I learned anything valuable about this person, because I thought that I knew everything that was expected, but I got off track easily. And I realized that if I had prepared questions like I usually do for, my podcast, then it would be easy. But because I was so used to the role in which they would be, I just assumed that I'd be, okay. But it actually is really helpful to have an outline and like some choice questions that maybe you wouldn't even think of because you're so used to a certain process.
Absolutely right.
So our game is over, but now I want to know more about you and Magi specifically. So what was the defining moment that made you say that you wanted to start this? Like, how did your vision kind of shape what it became? Was it exactly what you pictured, or was it something that kind of evolved over time? Like, what? Tell me all about that.
Yeah, great question. So back in 2020, I decided to exit my first software company. I'd been running a marketing agency for a while, doing social media and SEO and website design and development. And back in 2014, I had started my first software company with a couple of partners, and it became quite successful. And over the years, my partners and I kind of grew apart. We didn't really agree on anything anymore. And so it was time for me to exit in 2020. So I had two ideas that I really wanted to run with. And around this time, AI really was just known by a handful of people, that it was even being developed for online tool use, like copywriting and blog posts and stuff like that. There was a few little AI copywriters out there, but the masses of people didn't really hear about them or use them because they were mostly for marketers. And so I had used some of those tools. I wasn't really happy with them. And these two product ideas that I had back in 2020, to me, were going to be groundbreaking. That's, I guess, every founder, thinks their idea is groundbreaking. But the scope of these ideas were very much advanced AI, but nowhere near where current AI capabilities lived. So I was going to need $100 million to make these ideas happen. I didn't have $100 million. I managed to gather a couple of investors and had a small amount of capital to start with. And we kind of whittled down the idea to its minimum viable product version, the MVP. So long story short, those MVPs weren't enough. I could not find traction. They were absolute failures. I pretty much poured all of my money into them and lost it all because we just couldn't find product market fit. Mm-hmm. I was at the end of my rope, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. I was starting to take on clients again because I'd given up clients for a few years. And all of a sudden, ChatGPT hits the scene, November 2022. And I used it for the first time. I was one of the first users to use it in its public state. And I was blown away. My mind was shattered. This was the AI that we've been waiting for. I tried these other AI tools. They were awful. They were all based on templates and filling out these forms. And it was just nonsense. If I could just type to the AI, tell it what I want, and it gives it to me, holy cow, this is going to change the entire world. And it was almost like I had a vision of what was going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years. And so I just started using it prolifically. I was using it for myself to produce content, to refine content, to come up with ideas. I was using it for my clients. And it didn't take long for the entrepreneur in me to go, this is cool, but why doesn't it do this? And why doesn't it have this feature? And why is this feature missing? And why do I have to have another subscription over here to this other thing because they're different? Why did I have to go over here for the video stuff and here for the image stuff and here for the audio? It was a nightmare, and like trying to get all of the AI things to work together for all of the things that I was doing. Having some experience in the SaaS space, the software as a service space, knowing that there is such thing as subscription burnout. People are getting tired of having 1,000 different subscriptions. I knew this to be true because my first software product was a subscription product. And so I knew that, if people are going to have 15 different AI subscriptions, that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of financial strain, and it's a lot of fracturing of their workflows. What if I could come up with a way where they can access all of the AI things in a application and an interface that is better to look at? I'm a designer first and foremost. I love building beautiful interfaces. It's easy to use, and it means they only have to have one subscription instead of 15. It was a eureka moment. I think I can build this, and I think I can do it without capital, without a team, by myself, because I had no money and I had really nothing else to lose. So from late January through March, I just worked and worked and worked and worked until I finally had the first beta version of Magi ready March 31st of 2023 and released it to a small but enthusiastic handful of people who've had my other products in the past. And it was history after that. I mean, it was just gangbusters. We've been on quite a roller coaster. Turns out people also shared my frustrations with ChatGPT and the fracturing of all these subscriptions, and they wanted Magi as much as I wanted it. And so, now it's more than just me. We've got a team of 8 currently looking for a couple new hires, growing rapidly, and really excited about the future. It has become much more than that initial vision. It's more, it's still about bringing all the AI things into one place and using them in a place, in a way that makes workflows easy and makes it easy to access. But we're looking much more to the future, and how can we augment people and give them more advanced tools that don't take a degree in prompt engineering or AI to use, making them simple and easy and effective in a way that you can use them together seamlessly.
Yeah, I think that's very, very cool, because it is kind of a testament to a lot of conversations I have about AI of like, it is overwhelming the amount of tools also that people have to try teach themselves how to use, and then also decide whether they want to use them. And I think that having like that conglomerate is probably much more simplified than having all of these subscriptions all over the place, trying to remember which ones do what, and keeping track of them. This is like a solution to that problem as well.
Exactly.
So can you talk more about how this works in creation wise? Like, my first worry is like are you a partner with these AI? Like how are you able to incorporate it into a service where they're not suing you for
Yeah, that's a great question. These companies love Magi. We are their best customer, and here's why. So there's a lot of reports that came out last year, I think it's been a little over a year now, about how OpenAI is losing money hand over fist on its subscribers. So the people who are paying them $20 a month, they're losing millions and millions of dollars on these people. Why? Because they give a lot of it away for free, and they give a lot away to free users, right? So they're effectively paying for all these servers and all the systems that have to go in place. AI is not cheap to run. It is actually quite expensive and consumes a lot of energy. And, there's, environmental impacts that a lot of people are starting to become aware of, but it's not cheap. And so these companies are losing money every single time, somebody signs up for their subscription and uses it effectively. But with our relationship with them is all of these companies have what's called an API. And this is just the term that they use for the ability for one application to go use another application behind the scenes. So when you use ChatGPT from inside of Magi, you're using the same exact ChatGPT servers that you would use using ChatGPT natively. It's just that we have an API connection, sort of a back-end way to access it, so that you send a message to ChatGPT sends it back to Magi so you can see it and read it. And it's also stored on our servers instead of being stored there. It's also private on our servers where theirs is not. So we have this relationship and contracts in place that say, we are allowed to use your services. But the reason why we're their best customer is because we pay every single time. Every time you send a message through Magi, whatever AI company you're sending it to is billing us for that activity. So we are pure profit for these companies. We are not freeloading in any way whatsoever. These companies get paid every single time their servers are accessed. So they love us. I pay tens of thousands of dollars a month to OpenAI. They will answer my emails. They will make sure that I'm happy because they want more developers like me giving people access in a way that's not, costing them money. It's pure profit for them.
Yeah, and it also it fixes the solution of the problems in which people had with it. So it maintains a customer base that they might also be losing because of the issues in which them not being cross-compatible or having to use other services because they don't provide everything.
Exactly right.
Yeah, that's really cool. I really like that. Learning about this is really cool because I have like a new conversation about AI probably every day. And there's so many elements of it that I don't even know about. And so finding out about new tools that just absolutely fascinate me, is really cool. Speaking of, I think before I started having a lot of these conversations with people, I think there was an insane amount of misconceptions that I would hear about AI that I found out to be not true through a lot of people. What do you think is the biggest misconception that you find?
There's so many. I mean, there are really, Just this morning, I had there was a post in a Facebook group where somebody's speculating about all the things they're hearing about GPT-5, the next big version of OpenAI's chatbot. And I'm reading this very long, detailed speculation of all the rumors and all that's going to happen with GPT-5. And I'm reading line after line of, that's not how it works. That's not true. That's completely wrong. That's pure hype. There are a lot of misconceptions. And I think the reason for that is because there are so many people who they think they're an expert because they just use ChatGPT a lot. And they make a lot of assumptions, and they might have a lot of good assumptions that they've made or experiences, but they don't know the underlying technology, how it works. So there's just a lot of really famous or popular social media influencers who maybe just have come to the wrong conclusions and spread a lot of, I hate to use the word misinformation because it's not malicious anyway, but they have the wrong idea and they spread that wrong idea. One of the ones that I would say comes up the most is this idea of AI memory. So, and it's still surprising to me. So many people don't realize that AI doesn't have an infinite memory. It cannot, there's no LLM, large language model, chatbot, that can remember everything that you've ever said to it. These models, they have a very limited memory. So for example, the flagship version of ChatGPT has a memory limit, almost like a thumb drive, of, I believe it's, let me double check this. Actually, I have it listed here. So it has a memory of 128,000 tokens. What in the world is a token? This is AI language for how they perceive the characters in a conversation. Now, a token is not a letter or a number. It's not even a word. A token is about 4 or 5 characters of text. It's different how it calculates. It's not a precise science because it kind of considers fractions of words, tokens.
Oh, okay.
And so suffice to say, about 128,000 tokens is roughly the equivalent of 96,000 words. That's the rough estimate.
That is not as much as I thought it would be.
It's about a Harry Potter book.
Yeah.
Right? That's about the equivalent of what the AI can actually remember in a given conversation. And so some people will have these really long conversations with AI, and then they'll say something to it and it'll respond, and they'll be like, wait,
that doesn't sound like
already. We already talked about this. Did you forget this? Well, in all reality, the AI probably forgot it because it cannot process more than, in this case, 96,000 words at a time. And so just like your thumb drive, if you've got too many photos on there and you want to add more photos, what do you have to do? You have to remove some of the photos to get more storage space on there. And so that's how the AI works. And now, so there are features such as what ChatGPT calls memory. And it's very deceptive in its term. It makes you think that, the AI can remember all my other conversations too. It's not the reality. What's happening behind the scenes is a technology called RAG, R-A-G. It's called Retrieval Augmented Generation. And essentially what it can do is it has, almost think of it like a file cabinet filled with all these labeled files. And when you say something that kind of matches the title of the file or the description of the file that it has, it can go back to that file real quick, make a quick reference of basically the words that most relate to your query, and then use that in its response to you. So it's not like it's reading all of them at once because, again, limited memory. It's going and it's accessing what's the technical term for it is a chunk of data that it has available to it in its RAG database. So AI memory is one of the biggest misconceptions that's out there about how it works, how good it is, why you would use it. And in most cases, it's actually not a good idea for the AI to sort of remember everything about everything that you've ever told it. So
people don't, I don't think people really want that anyway. Like, I think hear that if anything.
I've had many conversations with people who are like, well, I want to build an AI that kind of knows everything about my life. And so that when I ask it about this, it can remember that about it. and it can use it for
that does make sense. There's definitely a type of
and it makes logical sense. But when you start to understand how these AIs work, how they respond to things, one of the things that you find immediately, and this is why we've built one specific feature in Magi called personas, is that if you give the AI all the context about you in the world, it's going to affect the outcome. You've probably heard a million people say, like, I asked ChatGPT to write me something and it sounded like AI. It sounded generic, right? And that's because it's using all of its data and it's kind of formulated its own voice, and it weighs everything however it's programmed to weigh it, and it gives you a generic response because it's filtering through its big database. Well, if you just narrow its context, if you just give it, say, some direction that says, we're going to talk about social media strategy, and you're going to be my social media expert, it works from a very different place than if it were a generalized assistant. So you're narrowing the context of what it's going to access in order to respond. So let's say you have a conversation at one point about, your biology paper that you're having trouble with. And then you go and you talk about your social media strategy. And then you go and you talk about, an email that you want to write back to your cousin who wronged you. I don't know what things you're doing. But all of that context, if it's in the same conversation, the AI can see it all. It's going to bleed into the next response. And so you can switch context all you want, but just understand that the more context that AI has, the more diluted every response is going to be. So you really want to have narrow conversations with the AI. Stay in one lane, stay in one topic or one project or one task. And that way your answers get more and more effective as the conversation goes on. Whereas if you're switching topics, if it knows about this part of your life and it's aware of this other thing that you did, all of that's going to bleed into the next response. And so you want to be super contextual with every conversation you have, which is also why memory can be a bad thing. Giving the AI too much context, too much knowledge can dilute its efficacy for specific tasks.
This is exactly why I love this podcast. I just learned so much.
You now know more than 95% of people who use AI on a daily basis.
It's so cool. And it also explains how I navigate just ChatGPT alone, because what comes up so often with specifically SEO experts is the purpose of why people use ChatGPT and when they use Google search. And even what you're talking about, the unit of measurement, the 4 to 5 words, almost explains exactly why someone uses ChatGPT over Google search sometimes, is because that's almost a lot of the times a full question. That would translate to a full response. And that is so cool. And also the limit makes complete sense too, and narrowing your search, because the amount of times in which I'll send an entire podcast transcript and say, hey, can you help me summarize this in 3 points? And then I have to do it again and they summarize it in a completely different way. And I'm like, yes. Oh, it's because the amount of words that I've sent them over time is way too much for them to remember how they did it the first time. And
it's really difficult.
Ooh, that's so cool.
With long-term stuff, it becomes really hard.
Yeah, no, that just provides so much helpful information for how to utilize the service.
That's also another reason why we built Magi the way we did, because not every AI model has the same memory limit. There are some, Claude from the beginning. Claude was one of my favorites from the beginning, because when ChatGPT was limited to 8,000 tokens at the beginning, I mean, think about that, 8,000 tokens, that's about 3,000 words.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
What can you do with that? Nothing. But that was what we had at the beginning. Claude came out of nowhere with 200,000 context limit. Wow. And it's still exceeding, even with OpenAI's massive upgrades, it still exceeds OpenAI's default models. Now, OpenAI also has the 4.1 models, which have a 1 million token context limit, much, much bigger. I think Google even has, Google has one that's in the 2 million range. A lot of context you can add to that. But with Magi, we actually list the token limits for each model. So you can say, well, I need a really long conversation. So I'm going to pick a model with the longest possible context limit. That way I won't run out. And so you get to be able to pick and choose based on your needs.
That is really, really cool. This is a fascinating conversation. I'm going to be really honest. I talk about AI a lot, but it's not in this like technical way in which I am actually understanding it foundationally more, instead of kind of people's opinions on what it should be used for and why, which is also equally as fascinating. But this is just like giving me more context of like how to better use it and, talk about it as, I feel like I'm taking a class right now. Well, okay, but so you also emphasize like ethical AI. What to you is that specifically? Like, what do you consider is ethical in your perspective?
Well, I think about it a lot like this. I really try to frame the AI as an employee. I own a business for a long time. I had a marketing agency where one of the things that we were hired to do for people was to be ghostwriters. We were writing a lot of social media content. We were writing a lot of blog articles, sometimes ebooks, sometimes landing pages, web pages. And we were ghostwriting for these clients, whether it was a big business or whether it was a personal brand. I did a lot of social content for some very popular social media people. And, there was nothing wrong with them hiring me as a ghostwriter to write for them, because my job was to analyze what they are good at, their body of work, figure out their tone, their voice, and match it, and then produce content that aligns with them and their whatever their goals are, whatever their voice wants to be, whatever their brand is supposed to represent. And at the end of the day, it's their job as either the business owner or the personal brand, whoever I'm writing on behalf of as a ghostwriter, it's their job to go, okay, yes, I approve that. Or, okay, no, I don't approve that. We have to change this and that. So they are putting their reputation on the line for everything that I produce for them. So in the same way, I think it's completely fine to teach AI how to write like you, how to say it, to prompt it, and to help you write things, as long as you are critically evaluating everything that it does. Because AI, one thing we know for sure is it does lie. It will confidently lie and think it's telling the truth. The technical term is called a hallucination. It just makes stuff up. So you just have to take responsibility for everything that the AI produces. Think about it critically. And before you put it out there into the world, just make sure it has your seal of approval. And never, try to deceive people in any way with it, saying, I wrote this by myself. Like, if you feel comfortable disclosing, like some of our work was augmented with AI, I think that's a very responsible thing to do. I don't think it's necessary, especially on things like a web page or a landing page or, even blog posts. Like, we're using Grammarly and spell checkers and stuff like that. Anyways, like, it's the same thing to me. And again, same thing as a spell checker. Another thing I think you should never use AI for is obviously to cheat on tests out there. My wife is an English teacher. So.
Oh no! Oh, do they have? That is, I know this is slightly off topic, but do they have checkers for seeing when people are doing that? Because I'm so concerned for the future of the youth.
Here's another myth. Unfortunately, I'm going to make a lot of students happy and a lot of teachers really mad.
Oh no!
But there are AI checkers out there, and they are complete snake oil. They do not work. They are working on pattern recognition.
No.
And they just don't work. You can put something from a real written book in there and it'll call it AI content. You can put something completely AI content in there and it'll say it was completely authentic. And they are really just hit and miss, and do not pay for these AI checkers. Really, the only way to prevent it is to really emphasize to students, like, be ethical. You're in this class because you want to learn and grow your skills. If you shortcut your learning with AI, you are only hurting yourself in the long run. It's not going to hurt the teacher. It's not going to hurt your classmates. You are undercutting your own education, your own growth by doing this. And then, of course, like I said before, if you put generic content into ChatGPT, you're going to get generic out. And so it's going to sound like AI. Most teachers know their students enough. And my wife has done this 1,000 times. She reads a report by a kid and she goes, he never uses those words.
Yeah, like what?
He does not sound like
you. Mm-hmm.
This is not written by him. And then you'll have the kids that on occasion they accidentally include the preamble or the follow-up that the AI has written. Like, I hope this is what you were looking for.
I know.
Of course I can write your report on such and such. And they forget to remove that from the document. But yeah, I don't think we're totally cooked in terms of our kids learning. As long as we do it right, we teach them right. Look, we had the same thing happen when Google came around. I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but when Google first hit the scene and people started using it, the first thing that was outrage across the world was kids are just going to use Google to cheat. Well, yeah, they could.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, at the time, it was groundbreaking because in order to cheat before that, you had to like go to a library and look up a bunch of books. And so
write it all down, slip it in your pocket. Or...
Right. Yeah. So you had to, it was a lot more work to you actually had to do research. But with Google, you could just look up the answers on any website, and that made it a lot easier to get what you're looking for. So, yeah, I mean, we've been struggling with this for decades. How do we teach kids right to use tools correctly, to actually use their brains, to actually learn and not shortcut their education? AI is going to make it a lot easier to shortcut their education, but it's our job as adults to lead with integrity and to teach them the right way, and hopefully they listen.
Yeah, no, it concerns me, but I'm also like, I mean, good parents will create good kids, and I think that, there's always kids that will cheat. I mean, that's been forever before it was easy to cheat, and even then, I mean, I remember growing up and people doing their parents doing their diorama projects for them, and them looking so good, and my mom yelling at me like, I will not help you with your diorama.
Yeah.
But that's why I learned. I learned because I wasn't, my parents weren't doing my work for me. And, I feel better that way because I value education in a way that maybe a lot of people don't. And that's okay. It's okay to actually, do good, so to speak, for your own benefit and not necessarily because it's morally correct. Mm-hmm. And so I hope that AI is not tainting that even further. But I don't think so. I think it's just, it's also a testament to what you said about the fact that at this point, it doesn't necessarily sound like someone that, like, especially if you can identify their voice, it's not, it's very clear when it's not that person. And unless you've been using it like that since you became a public figure, I don't think anyone will really, I think people can see through things very easily. So kind of, okay, because we didn't much talk about creativity, I guess, because you started as a creative. So as a founder, how do you kind of keep creativity alive in a very tech-driven world that you're in right now? Like you said that your interface is something that you think is beautiful because of the way in which you created it. But what about the world in which is increasingly automated?
Yeah, creativity is very important to me. I still consider myself to be a creative. And I think, like I alluded to before, being a professional creative is really, really hard. It's a grind, especially if you're doing social media creatives, because it's a daily requirement, right? You need to constantly be burning that creativity and putting out as much as you can in the world. And if you want to maintain quality of that creativity, you have to find ways to sustain it. I can't tell you how many times I experienced professional burnout. And when you hit real burnout, I mean, it's almost as if like you feel like you can never be creative ever again. It's terrible. I mean, you're just exhausted to your soul. And I hated that feeling, especially when I had deliverables that were due for a client. And so for me, any tool can be a crutch, right? But for me, it's more of a augmentation. I use that word a lot because it's the only word that seems to fit it. It's I guess supplement is another way to say it. So I'll use the AI. I will use some of my own creativity and put forth, a few good ideas that I have, and then ask the AI to give me more or to help me elaborate on that or go deeper into them. And so in that way, it's a creative assistant to me and not replacing my ability to think and be creative altogether. There was a recent study that came out. I think it was MIT that did this study of, people who used AI to just basically be a crutch for them, and they experienced cognitive decline because of it. So they became not stupider, but like more lazy, I guess, mentally. And that led to a decline. Whereas you had another group of people, this was less covered in the news, this part of the study. They said that people who used it found as a foundational approach to expand upon what they already knew, to augment their skill set, they actually experienced increased cognitive ability. So if you use it in the right way as a partner, it can be a way of helping you stretch. So you think about, I go to the gym every now and then, and if I go there, I can use just my body weight. Like I could do pull-ups, I can do push-ups, air squats without any weight on me, but I use these other tools to help load more weight on there so that my muscles become stronger. And I think if we apply that analogy to our use of AI, that it is a tool that's going to help us flex a little more than we could without it, then I think we'll be in a very good place to not just lean on a crutch for extra creativity, but to just enhance and sustain our own creativity.
I completely understand. I think it's like an enhancement. I kind of think about it like Batman and his tools. Like he'd probably be really good at punching people without tools, but the tools help him do more things. And I think that it's very similar to that in the idea that there are unbelievably talented people out there that use AI to just make their work even better, or just make their workload easier so that they don't reach that point of burnout. Because especially with creatives, it's sad to see like your passion be the thing that is, running you to the ground because it's something that you're doing too much, and that ChatGPT, even with like ChatGPT or any kind of service, similarly, AI in general has the ability to also help you out of those slumps like writer's block and like any kind of creative block. And I think that is so unbelievably, it's just like, it changes the world of, professionals that are overworked and, put so much time into things that aren't like need to be done, but aren't necessarily worthwhile in the amount of time that it takes and the amount of detail that needs to be put into it.
Right. And I'll take it one step further. So I think what AI did in reality, a lot of people say that the internet's going to get flooded with AI generated content and, people are going to be devalued. I think what AI did in terms of human work is it lowered the bar for mediocrity. And because, again, going back to this idea that the lazy people are going to use it to be more lazy, they're not going to spend the time to craft a persona or to craft a role to get the expert version of that output. And they're not going to put their critical thinking hat on when the AI produces something. They're just going to look at it and go, yeah, that's good enough. Somebody with a critical eye, somebody who is intentional, who wants to use the AI to enhance what they're doing, not to shortcut it, they're going to look at what the AI produces and go, oh, that's good, but it could be better if we did this. They're going to use their expertise to enhance what the AI is producing, whereas the lazy people are just going to copy and paste and be done with it, right? So there's going to be a lot more mediocre, low quality stuff out there, and the real pros, the real experts, the people who care about quality, they're going to rise to the top as they always do.
Yeah, I think I share that same sentiment of the idea that I think with the further advancements with AI and the more reliance on it, that people will almost crave this personal touch a lot more, and therefore people that have been working on that for so long and are only using it for enhancement, they're going to stand out amongst a lot of this AI noise, I suppose, of over-reliance on it, because it is something that can help in so many ways of workflows, or just like helping everything that you're doing make it better. But if you're not using it for your own voice, then it's not really worth anything. It's just kind of, and if anyone can do it, then it's not really, you should probably be worried.
Agreed.
Well, I think this is a perfect place to end, because I think that you had a very succinct point to create, and we're almost at time, so this is perfect. But I loved this conversation. I learned so much that I will literally use in my daily life.
Test at the end.
I'm going to cheat and use AI, because apparently you can't check that. But no, I really appreciate everything that you brought to the table today. I love to learn on this podcast. It's selfishly my favorite part, but it's also, this is something that I can use every single day. So I truly, really appreciate everything that you shared with me today.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Glad to share some education, and because we're all in this together, right? We're all trying to figure out this new AI world. We're all at different stages of our learning, and one of my goals from the very beginning is to be a voice of help. I went through the age of the internet, where before the internet existed, everything was brick and mortar businesses, and people had a certain way of doing things. They've been doing that for years and decades and centuries even. And when the internet came online, so many businesses got completely wiped out because they couldn't adapt. They didn't have training. They didn't have somebody walking them into this new age, telling them what's coming or how to adapt to these new technologies and cultural shifts. And I don't want to see businesses go through that with this AI thing. So, part of my goal has been, how can I educate the world about using this technology, getting access to it in a democratized way, and being able to use it for whatever it is they need to use it for, so that they can thrive in the coming economy.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree. That's why I value free sources of education so much. And that is exactly what this podcast is supposed to be, is, there's so many professionals putting a bunch of posts on LinkedIn, which is not bad. I appreciate that. And I understand we all need LinkedIn voices, but to have a succinct way of someone being able to take in a lot of information is a lot easier, instead of someone scrolling through your LinkedIn page to find all your different facts. So again, thank you so much for participating in this. I really appreciate it. This was absolutely lovely. And I know that our audience will get hopefully just as much knowledge out of this as I did. I can't even imagine. So thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.